do
Yeah.
that. Yeah, that'd be great.
Some of you might not be aware and might not know Virginia very well at all, but the recent offering from the center, you know how we get those offerings every week.
Yes.
It was a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, Virginia Rudd's talk at the center was one of the offerings. And if you haven't seen that, it really does reveal who she was, her sense of humor, her sort of, skepticism and her love for Baba and everything. It just comes really through on that. If you haven't seen it, it's a fantastic video. Check it out.
I have a little clip from a video, and it might be the same one you're speaking of, and it's when Virginia met Baba in the lagoon cabin. Just that experience of that brief.
Yeah, she tells that story in the video I'm talking about, but there's another video that Raph actually made of his mom, which is much older and not as good, I don't think, because when she was younger, she was telling the story with more clarity and more passion. She was pretty old in the video that Raph made. I'm not sure which one you're talking about.
I think it's the one that Raph made.
Okay, yeah, I'm not going to recommend that one. I recommend the other one, certainly. Much more so.
Now you tell me. I got to try to find the other one and cue it up.
Well, if you want to do your thorough research, of course, both would be called for, right? But the earlier one from the center is fantastic, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Jeff saw that. He was talking about one also that he had seen a video of her. So I don't know if that was probably the one from the center as well. Hey, Jeff.
Hello, Jeff.
One from Virginia?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I don't know if it was taken at the center, though.
Well, there's one of that Raphael made, and Duke said there's one also from the center that he really liked.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty certain that it was at the meeting place at the center.
Yeah.
It was part of the offerings just about a month ago, I think, maybe a little longer ago. That's the one I think is really great. Yeah.
Yeah, it would take me too long.
There's one that has Raphael's music behind it.
Yeah.
That's the one that I saw.
Ah, okay. That's not the one I'm talking about.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Well, it's such an amazing story. So I think that, anybody, once you're done here, you certainly can dig into the videos about her because they were amazing.
Did somebody kind of excerpt that one portion where she went into the barn and met Baba for the first time?
Me.
Oh, yeah, Ruth got that. She's got that covered.
Perfect. Yeah, I got that queued up, Jeff, after, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. I dreamed about her last night. I watched the video and then I dreamed about her, which was really sweet. I don't remember what the dream was, but yeah.
They were so approachable.
What's that?
They were so approachable. I looked at them and said, I could be as natural as that. That's doable. They weren't on some sublime, transcendent realm.
Well, but she apparently had a lot to do with mythology and forming. Yeah, that was pretty cool too.
With Joseph Campbell.
Yeah, Joseph Campbell. She incorporated a lot of her study of Campbell's work into her own work as a teacher, as a professor. Yeah.
And she used to get together with him. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, Duke has a whole font of information, I'll call it. And so he's going to share that with us. And I have a video that I'll show in just a minute. I just thought, Baba lovers they just don't ever seem to be on time. So I think we should give them just a couple of more minutes before we start. But
yeah. Because I think the background of these two people is well worth hearing.
Yeah. Well, and I did some, this morning, I did a little bit of research on Gabriel Pascal. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Yeah, because Hannah Myers sent me something about him, and I had heard Virginia Rudd bring his name up as well. And of course, I knew about the film that he was planning with Baba. So, but I didn't know how they all kind of wove together. You know what I mean? How did, anyway, I didn't know how it all happened. So it was kind of interesting to just read and see and just get more history from those days. It's just filling in a lot of blanks for me from those early lovers of Baba. Well, here's, David D'Angelo.
Denise.
Denise! Good morning. I'm so glad you're here.
I unmuted myself. Was I supposed to do that?
Oh, Denise. Hi, Denise.
Yeah.
Bobby.
Oh, wow.
I gotta put my glasses on. Who is there?
Great,
Hi,
great.
Jeff
Oh my
Wilmerton.
Yeah.
Oh my. Oh my. Oh.
One of the Jones sisters.
Yes.
Oh, hello, everybody.
Yes. Hello. Yeah, I'm hoping David Nordine shows up. We invited him because I took that song that Harold had written that David sang. So it's part of the video that's coming up.
Like my women.
I don't think she means that one, Jeff.
You can sing it later, Jeff.
Yeah.
In select company, maybe.
I know. Hannah had a few stories that she said, I don't think I can tell those on Zoom. But they were good. Yeah, that was the beauty. That's what I really appreciated about just looking at that video. Bobby's hands up. What's up, Bob?
Oh, well, you might not. I sent you a very last minute email, but I've got a song that I found in my files of his that
Yes.
I'd love to sing. I hope the other one, it's I'll Mend Your Broken Heart. Has anyone taken that one yet?
No.
Good.
Very cool, Bobby. Thank you. That's great.
Glad to be part of it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just astounding that we get to remember these people and just honor their memories.
I wonder if anyone had ever recorded Harold doing the Parvartigar prayer, accompanying himself on the harmonium.
There is a CD of him doing that.
Oh, really?
I mean, he made a tape. A few people have it. And
David?
I bought a CD. Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, he used to do it every year at the Baba/Harold birthday party. Harold and Baba shared birthday. The birthday party at the Rudds was always a big event. Baba lovers from near and far would come to the Rudds house, and Harold would, of course, always do the Parvartigar prayer, and then other musicians would sit at the piano and that kind of thing. But it was always something I felt like, oh wow, I hope somebody got that on tape. You know, that's what we used to call it in those days, tape.
Yes. Well, David Nordine said he had a number of tapes of Harold Rudd, and he was going to try to go through some of them. So I don't know, more to come.
Yeah, Jane gave me a plastic bag full of cassette tapes that came from the sort of early Rudd years, and Harold may be on that. I know a lot of Raph is on that. But I haven't listened to them. I don't have a cassette player. I've been meaning to transfer them to some, listenable file or something. But I still have them. Jane probably knows what's on there. Maybe she remembers, I don't know. But anyway, I'm glad there is some audio documentation.
Yeah. Yeah, I had to search high and low to get a tape player. But actually, the best thing was just to go to Walmart, of course.
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, it's already 11:05, so I think it's a good time to start.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba to everyone.
Yeah.
Still are a few people. There's Bob, Aaron's, Jai Baba, Bob. So we still have people coming in. I'll go ahead and just cue up this video that I have. We're here to honor Harold and Virginia and Raphael Rudd today. Celebrate their lives with Meher Baba. Just amazingly beautiful Baba lovers. And so we're going to spend some time in memory. I just put together a little video with a song that Harold wrote for Baba. I'm not going to mute everybody. You can mute yourselves or unmute yourselves as you feel, unless there's some interruption in sound while someone else is talking. We also, as a rule, once we start sharing, we have someone here today. Duke is going to share a lot of the memories that he had of the Rudd family, 30 years worth. And then I have something to read at some point. And we ask that you raise your hand digitally, or I'll try to keep an eye on the screen for people who just wave their hands. But in order to raise your hand digitally on a PC, you hit Alt-Y. And if you have a Mac, you hit Option Y. And also there's a little place at the bottom that has reactions. And if you click on that, there's a hand raise. So Bobby's already, she's our model, showing us how to raise the hand. And I'll go ahead and start this video. And Che Baba to one and all, welcome. Happy Mother's Day, as is appropriate. All right, I think that's it. Turn off mine.
Beloved Mayhair Baba, come into our lives and let there be just you. Let there be just you. Beloved Mayhair Baba, annihilate all strife, and let there be just you. Let there be just you. We've searched for you so long, so right whatever's wrong. Your joy and love prolong. I am your song. Beloved Mayhair Baba, come into our hearts. Let there be just you. Let there be just you. Beloved Mayhair Baba, come into our lives and let there be just you. Let there be just you. Beloved Mayhair Baba, annihilate all strife, and let there be just you. Let there be just you. We've searched you so long, so right whatever's wrong. Your joy and love prolong. I am your song. Beloved Mayhair Baba, come into our hearts. Let there be just
Jay Baba. So that's just some images to give you a start, warm us up here a little bit. And Duke, if you'd like to share, I'll just let you start now.
Sounds good. Thank you. Those of you who might not know, the woman who was pictured a couple of times with Virginia when they were wearing the saris, that kind of thing, that's Ruth Rosen, Greg Rosen's mom. They were very close friends for many years. Okay, so when Angela asked me to share a couple of stories about the Rudds, because I knew them and knew them so well and was so close with them for about 30 years, I didn't really know where to begin. So I just started just writing different ideas for stories. And I sent it off to Angela and I said, which ones do you like? And she said, all of the above. Well, that certainly wouldn't be possible in the time allowed, right? So I decided I would zero in on two in particular stories, one long and one short. So if you have patience for the long one, that'll be great. And then I'll add the short one after. The long one has to do with my first meeting. It's a really detailed description of my first meeting with the Rudds, which in my life is something I'll just never forget. And I think you'll see why from the way I present it, I hope so, today. So I first met the Rudds in the spring of 1969. I was 12 years old, right? And this is the way it happened. Raph and I were in the same 8th grade class at what was called the Franklin Middle School in Nutley, New Jersey. We grew up in Nutley, Raph and I. We didn't know each other very well in those early years, but before long, we discovered that we were both musicians. And we talked about music now and then during those years, but Raph was already advancing really quickly and showing amazing talent as a pianist. Already by that time, at the age of 12, he was playing very challenging classical pieces and writing his own music. And those of you who know anything about Raph know that he eventually became quite an accomplished pianist, harpist, songwriter, orchestrator, singer. But in those days, I remember that English class that Raph and I were in, only insofar as I remember where I sat and where Raph sat. And I can't tell you a single other person who was in that class, which strikes me as kind of weird, but that's true. So anyway, one day, our teacher, Ms. Primamore was her name, and I don't remember why I remember that, but anyway, she announced to the class that Raphael would be missing some days of school because he had gone to India. And the idea of going to India, in those days, seemed pretty strange to the average suburban kid in New Jersey, I think, and it did to me. Not a lot of parents, for sure, pulled their kids out of school to go to India for a week, but that's what we were told Raph was doing. But she added, what's more, Raph has promised to share photographs with all of us when he comes back to school after his trip. And so some of us were like, oh, wow, that sounds like fun, right? So Raph had gone to India, obviously, if you haven't already figured that out, because this is 1969, Raph, Virginia, and Harold had gone to India for Baba's last darshan. And when he was back in school, Raph not only brought photos back, but he presented a slideshow for the class, complete with his own narration, which included lots of detail about Baba's life. And I found the whole presentation both strange and intriguing. Right? Remember, I'm 12 years old here and had never heard of Baba at all. So after class, I went over to Raph and I told him something, I don't remember what it was, but I must have asked him something more about Meher Baba or said something to the effect that I was curious to know more, because I clearly remember Raph saying, well, if you want to learn more about Baba, come over to my house. My dad will love to tell you anything you want to know. I was a little bit surprised at the suggestion, but I said, great. And Raph set up the meeting at the Rudds' house. The Rudds lived on Church Street in Nutley, which I have often, in years later, often looked back on and thought that was kind of funny, because it turned out that for me, going to the Rudds' house was kind of like going to church. I remember when I entered the Rudd's house, I felt like I had entered a very strange place, not like the homes of my other friends in suburban New Jersey. The house, for one thing, is one of the oldest houses in Nutley. Raph grew up in a very old house, one of the original houses built in Nutley. The ceilings, like so many old houses, the ceilings are very low throughout the house. It was built when people were smaller than they are today, I guess. And the Rudd's furniture was definitely 1950s style, but it was the colors, the color palette of the house, the living room in particular that I remember. There was a pink, I guess no surprise, and blue color scheme in the living room. Lots of pink everywhere, a pink couch and a blue upholstered chair. I'm not sure, it might have been the opposite, might have been vice versa. But anyway, lots of pink and blue. The walls were white throughout the house. And anyway, the Rudds greeted me and invited me to sit, so I did. And looking around, I noticed a huge Lynn Ott portrait of Baba on one wall. Of course, I didn't know who Lynn Ott was at the time, but I recognized the portrait as being of Baba, having seen the slideshow, and it was huge with the low ceiling and the small living room. It really did, to some extent, dominate the room. There was also an enlarged black and white photo of Baba on another wall in the living room. And of course, Raph's Steinway baby grand really dominated the room, took up basically half the room. So Virginia went into the kitchen and Harold began by asking my religion. You know, if you know anything, if you've met Harold, you know anything about him, this is a conversation between Harold and a 12-year-old boy, right? I told him I belonged to the local Episcopalian church, that I attended Sunday school and after-school confirmation classes, anticipating my confirmation once a week, and that I served as an altar boy at my church. I remember him saying to me in response to that, with a very serious look, "You're a devout Christian then." And I didn't even know what the word devout meant actually at that time, but it sounded accurate. So I remember saying, yeah, that's right. And so he looked me straight in the eye and he said, "You know, Baba is Jesus." And I remember being a little taken aback by that in that moment and a little confused by it. But I managed to say, "Yeah, Raph told me that," which of course he had said so much, so said that to most effect during the slideshow. So anyway, that's how it all started. And so Virginia brought out some cookies at one point, which helped because I was feeling a little awkward. And Harold played a song on the piano, and I'm a piano player, and I was in those days. I started piano lessons when I was a really little kid, so I was interested in the music. And Harold sat down and said he was going to play me a song, and he played a song using almost all black keys, only the black keys. I don't know, maybe Bobby knows what key that would be in. I don't know offhand, but I thought it very strange that Harold used hardly any white keys on the piano, and that I remember. When he was done, of course, I gave him a round of applause. I said, "Thank you for that." And then he said, "Movie time." So he asked me to help him set up an 8mm projector on a small table about 6 feet from the a sort of small white space on a wall. And he introduced what we were about to watch by saying, "This is a film of Raph meeting Baba in 1958. I'm glad he didn't say this is a movie of Raph taking Baba's darshan, because I really wouldn't have known what he was talking about. But so I was introduced to this. Harold provided an introduction to this, what we were going to see. And then while we watched this grainy 5-minute home movie, Harold provided his narration. He pointed to and named some people I didn't know, but I guess suggesting that they were important people. And then he alerted to me what was going to happen in the frames we were about to see. Harold bending down with 2-year-old Raph on his shoulders so that Raph would be eye to eye with Baba. Then, I'm sure all of you have seen this film, or at least a good amount of it. Baba holds Raph's hands, which Harold explained to me he believed was a transfer from Baba to Raph of what later became Raph's talent as a pianist. He also told me that Baba chose Raph's soul specifically to be his and Virginia's son. I don't remember saying anything to that. I suspect I said nothing, just taking it in. Now, this visit to the Rudds was unlike any experience I'd previously had. The impression it made on me was very deep and long lasting. As I began to look back at that visit years later, I realized that in so many ways, it set in motion countless aspects of what became what I would call my life. Raph and I became close friends instantly, and our friendship intensified with each passing year. We played music together on many occasions. I attended many of Harold Baba birthday parties at the Rudds house. Baba and Harold, as I mentioned earlier, shared the same birthday. While I was in college, I grew very close to Virginia, who was an English professor at Rutgers University, and who became a sort of mentor to me as I studied literature and philosophy myself. While Raph and I were both graduate students in New York City, I was at Columbia and he was at the Manhattan School of Music. We got together often, had many of the same friends, most of whom were Baba lovers, of course, far too many to name here. But always it was the connection to Raph that brought us all together. We were in our 20s. Actually, Raph and I were only born a couple of weeks apart in 1956. So if there's anything to astrology, maybe that's to some extent to account for our deep friendship. Those were marvelous times for both of us in New York. New York City was our playground. We spent countless hours on the phone talking about anything and everything. And then we would get together later to continue the conversations. In the late 1980s, while I was working, excuse me, in book publishing, Raph introduced me to a Baba lover named Bill Donahue. Some of you may know Bill. I got to know Bill quite a bit in those days because he was a book illustrator and I was able to hire him to do some illustrations for me. But I got to know Bill, and then I got to know Kirsten Long, who was his partner at the time. Kirsten and Bill eventually introduced me to Melinda Buckwalter, who is on the call today, if you look around the squares. Melinda Buckwalter, a dancer who studied with Margaret Krask, Tex Hightower, and Peter Saul, and I were married in 1994. Raph was at our wedding, and that was the last time I saw Raph. During the 1990s, Melinda and I visited the center almost every year, and we always made a point of spending an evening with Virginia and Harold. And then even later, after Harold passed, with Virginia and her sister Winnie at their house in North Myrtle Beach. Raph was living in California during those years, and I spoke with him very little. It seemed to me that he and I clearly both realized by that point that our respective lives had gone in very different directions. When Melinda and I received word in March of 2002 that Raph had been in a car accident and was unconscious in an LA hospital, I knew intuitively that he wouldn't recover. I don't know, it was just my hunch that he wouldn't recover. I guess, looking back, I feel like I had, it had become hard for me to even imagine Raph having a future at that point. And I say that very personally, in that it was kind of my intuition at the time. Anyway, Raph passed away on April 1st, 2002. And like everyone who knew him, I've missed him ever since. I have at times called him my best friend. But I also realized that so many people who knew Raph considered him their best friend. There was just something about him. He made you feel like you were the most important person in his life. And he did that for so many people. And that's one of the things that made him pretty incredible to me. So that's the long story. And now I have a short story. Let me just clear my throat to that one. I searched through my memories for a Harold story, for one that was particularly Harold and less Raph. And I have so many of Virginia, but I'm not going to share any of those today any more than I have already. But I decided that the best Harold story I could tell would be the one where the only time Harold and I were alone together, the only time. It was always with Raph or Virginia or other people. There was one time when I was alone with Harold, and this is how it went. I was right out of college, and without a job and not much money and this kind of thing. And I had mentioned to Raph that I was looking to find some work so I could make some money. And it wasn't long after that I got a call from Harold. First time he'd ever called me directly. And he explained that he had a gig for us, for the two of us, to serve food at a party. Now, Harold was in the food business. He was, as a young man, he was a Shakespearean actor, very talented artist, performing artist. But to make money and to support the family, he got into the food business. He waited tables, he did catering, he did all kinds of food stuff as a career. Anyway, he had an invitation to provide service to a very wealthy Greek family in New Jersey. They were rich from shipping, Greek shipping or something like that. And they were having a party and they wanted people to serve the catered food that they brought in for the party. And so Harold said, you know, a couple of $100 you'll make that day. It's not a big deal. We're just going to serve the food. I said, fantastic, Harold, let's do it. So he picked me up and we drove to these people's house, which was a very beautiful house in central New Jersey, in Morris County, I believe it was. And all the food was spread out all over in platters, you know, and in the kitchen, on the kitchen table. And we were instructed that our job was to bring the food into the dining area in a certain order. That was it. That's all we had to do. And so we started getting to work unwrapping the food and placing it in very attractive way on the various platters. And while we were working, there was a radio on in the kitchen. Now, during this time, specifically during this time, Raph was in London recording with Pete Townsend. And so as we were working, Harold and I were working on this food, preparing it for to be served, a Who song came on the radio. And I noticed it, but Harold didn't know the Who from, I don't know, Fritz Kreisler. He didn't know, right? So I said, Harold, you know, that's Pete Townsend on the radio right now. That's the Who. He said, really? I said, yeah. I said, maybe that's Raph kind of saying hello to us. Because we both knew, of course, that Raph was with Pete at the time. He said, you know, Baba is everywhere. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Baba is everywhere. And then he said, okay, you take the stuffed mushrooms and I'll take the deviled eggs. And then we were off on our job responsibilities. Anyway, so that's my story of being alone with Harold and serving food. Thank you, everybody. Jai Baba.
Sorry. Thanks, Duke. That was great. Both stories were really beautiful and straight from the heart. I think everybody feels that. Anybody can say what their sense is, but I was just taken by both stories. Thank you so much.
Great, Ruthie.
I'll take the stuffed mushrooms. Well, I'm going to ask Bobby to come forward next. Is that okay, Bob? Oop, you're muted.
Yeah, I was shaking my head violently. Yes. It's good. Bobby, take it away.
If we can get Bobby to unmute. You're talking, but we can't hear a word, Bobby.
Okay, sorry. What happened was my chat box, it
Yeah.
froze on the screen. So I was trying to get rid of it.
No worries. And just for those who don't know, if you want to hit view and hit speaker, then you see just Bobby. Or you can see the whole gallery if you hit gallery.
Okay, so I just wanted to mention that I have a song that I'd like to share that Harold wrote. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. That Harold wrote. What he would do is he used to, he would take an old song and then he'd either put Baba's name in it, or he would just change it totally like this one. But I wanted to mention first that in like it was late 70s, early 80s, I moved to be close to my mom. Um, and I was in Nyack and she was in New Jersey. And so I would bring her to the Rudds occasionally to go to their meetings. And it was really like, it was so entertaining, Virginia, so intelligent and knowledgeable and everything. At the same time, she was so funny and she'd laugh a lot. And my mother got such a kick out of her. And then you would have Raphael would sit, play the harp or the piano. My mother played piano, so she enjoyed that. I'm glad to be mentioning my mother on Mother's Day because she was such a good sport. She would go with me to my Baba meetings, and she'd go with my brother to satsang with Guru Maharaj. She was a really good sport. But anyway, so then Harold, I think he would end the meetings with Pravartagar prayer and some other songs. And so it was just really a wonderful experience to go to those meetings, and especially with my mom. It was really fun. And she got such a kick out of it. They were so down to earth. Anyway, I would call Harold in terms of the way he would express his music. He was like the equivalent of Dr. Ken Moore, the way he came, very very forceful. Um, and so, for example, one song that he put to music was "I Wonder What's Become of Sally, that old gal of mine." But in his interpretation is, I wonder what's become of Baba, that old pal of mine. So anyway, what I'm going to do though is take this song that I found in my notes here. He called it "I'll Mend Your Broken Heart," and he took that from "Cold Cold Heart" by Hank Williams. And he would kind of play. He had a very strong touch like this. If you should ever need a friend to mend your broken heart, I'll send you all my love to help you gain a brand new start. Oh, just believe that while there's life, there's hope that you will find a friend who understands just how to mend your broken heart. Of course, that's Baba. And if at times the way seems hopeless and dark, dear, I'll light my lamp of love to show you the way clear. Oh, just accept me as your friend and never from me part. And when I send you all my love, I'll mend your broken heart. Jai Baba.
Baba.
Jay Baba. That was beautiful. Thank you, Bobby.
You're welcome.
What a guy, huh?
Yeah.
All right, Bob, you want to share something with us?
Sure.
Jay Baba.
Jai Baba. When I had a medical practice in Loris, which is about 20 miles from Myrtle Beach, during the 80s and 90s. And eventually Harold and Virginia and Raphael became patients. So I saw them in the office on a routine basis. But they weren't the normal kind of patients, actually. Harold would often break into song in the waiting room. which was always packed with country people. And you may not have gotten the full impression of how vaudevillian he was. So it was quite something. And my nurse, who was very country, would get him in the room and stuff. She loved him. She just loved him. But the office was not the same for the rest of the day after he would come. When he passed away, Virginia and Raphael asked me to give the memorial talk at the service that they had for him, which was quite interesting. And unfortunately, I was looking to see if I could find that, but it's somewhere filed away. But I do remember one thing, one line from that, which was that Harold was a man who ran along the edge of sanity without ever quite falling off. And that described the Harold that I knew, at least, pretty well. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Hannah Peterson wrote that, I don't think she's here right now. She wrote that Harold used to drive through her neighbors' backyards to get to Highway 17. I loved it. All right. Thanks, Bob. All right. We have Tina, our fairy godmother.
Yeah, I too attended some of those birthday parties in Nutley, New Jersey. And, I was just really amused by the fact that Harold would launch into these songs with a great deal of gusto, but no relationship to the pitch. He would be seriously off key, but that was okay because it was, an experience. But my first meeting actually with Harold was when I was on a charter flight to India with the society. And, I was having some issues with Anna Rosa. And so I was in the middle, and Harold was on one side and Anna Rosa was on the other. I'd never met the man before. And he leaned over and said to her, "This is my fiance. I'm leaving Virginia and we're running away together." Of course, she made us change seats right away. She was not amused. Another time I remember Raphael telling me he was at a drive-in movie with his father and that Harold put on a scary mask and went around and tried to scare all the people who were watching the movies in their car. I don't know if Larry Hunt's here today, but he was another friend of Raphael's from high school. And he told me that Raphael told him to go to the center when he was down there in Myrtle Beach. And he was a musician too. And he's like, "No, I don't really want to go there. I'm an atheist." And but he went anyway because Raphael kept encouraging him. And, he walked into the lagoon cabin and Baba just clobbered him over the head with the love. He's been a Baba lover ever since. So, yeah. Those are just a few short little anecdotes, but I'll never forget him saying that I was his fiance.
Somehow I can picture it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can see the two of you. Anyway.
Oh, yeah. And Baba, he said, that he should stay at his waiter job until Baba called. But Baba never called. Just like, keep your day job.
Bob? Are you there, Bob?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I just thought of a story that many of you may have experienced. It must have been, I think Harold died about 92, maybe, somewhere in that range. Anyway, it was somewhere a few years before he passed away, and he was giving a talk at the center. So we were all in the meeting place, and he's on. So he starts walking up those 3 steps or whatever they are to the platform to perform, and he slips and goes bang right down on the stage, and everybody went, "Oh my God!" And Harold, being the type of person he was, immediately recovered and said, "Oh yeah, that was just part of my act," you know. And then he kind of stumbled around a little more to make that more obvious and went on with the show.
Wow. What an amazing soul, huh? All right, Jeff, you up?
So back in when I was working at the center as a caretaker in the 70s and 80s, sometimes someone would come up frantically to me and said, there's a man in the lagoon cabin. He's face down. He's groaning in pain. We got to get a hold of a doctor. I say, well, what does he look like? Well, he's kind of chubby and he got curly hair. That's Harold Rudd. Don't worry about him. Because invariably, about the first few days of his coming to the center, he and Virginia would come down from New Jersey. He would be in there moaning in pain, flat out on the floor. And why was he that way? Because, and maybe Duke knows the details a little bit more, but in the latter part of the 60s, he was looking for he needed to get a job, and he got this job at a New Jersey restaurant. Basically, I think is kind of a glorified busboy. And he wrote to Bob and asked if he should take this job. And so Bob said yes. And then, maybe a year or two later, Bob dropped his body. And so he was stuck. Baba did not rescind the order. So there he is just going around bussing tables, and maybe he did a little waitering, but I think he did a lot of bussing. And here's a guy that's very cultured, well-educated, had all this promise, and he spends the latter until he retired. Maybe it could have been 15 years. I don't know. Maybe Duke knows how long, but here he was strapped to this, in order to be true to Baba's last word to him, he suffered that. So, can you imagine just being at a New Jersey restaurant? And so he would come down, he would be so wasted, and it'd take him a while to recover. And is that pretty much how it happened, Duke?
Yeah, Jeff, your memory is right on there. The name of the restaurant was Pal's Cabin, for those of us who are New Jersey folk. Yeah. You might know that. And what Jeff is getting at here is that Harold developed back trouble, and I'm sure Bob would attest to this, from all those years of waiting tables and being on his feet for hours and hours every day. He developed back trouble, so that late in his life, he was in a serious amount of pain. When he went into the lagoon cabin after flying maybe or driving, he probably needed to stretch out or something like that because his back gave him lots of trouble.
Yeah, and he, he didn't bother to censure his kind of behavior in the lagoon cabin.
Oh, no.
When he was in there, it was his for the time being. But what a character. And I guess, Ruthie, you have a film clip of Virginia's first going into the lagoon cabin.
Yes, uh-huh.
I won't mention that. But the the beautiful thing, as we've mentioned, they were so approachable, they were so natural, so down to earth, so unspiritual in the whatever the classical sense. But it really, you felt, as I said earlier, you know, hey, I can be like these people. If Baba likes them, you know, loves them, and they love Baba, hey, anyone can do this. It's kind of my feeling. So what an endearing couple, and yeah, just great memories of them. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, Jeff. Thank you. That was beautiful. Alan, you're up. Jai Baba.
Got preempted a little bit on those stories, but I'm going to tell you the first time I met the Rudds. I was an innocent bystander, I tell you. I was a victim of circumstances, or as Curly would say, a victim of circumstances. And I was having lunch in the original kitchen when it was the original kitchen. You know, the extension wasn't there yet. I was by myself and I was staring out at the lake. It was a lovely day. I wasn't married. It was probably in the late 70s. I hear a car pull up, not uncommon. Don't think anything of it. I hear the car door open, same thing. The door to the kitchen opens. Doesn't bother me a bit. Somebody comes in. I'm just staring out at the lake. And all of a sudden behind me is this fellow with his head towards where the new kitchen is, his feet back towards the old kitchen, lying on the floor, pounding the floor with his arms, screaming, "I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore." Now, I want to tell you, I'd been a Baba lover for a number of years at that point, but I had not read the book that gave instructions on how one deals with this situation when somebody behind you, while you're eating lunch, is pounding the floor, screaming, "I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore." So I had this crisis. Do I continue eating because I was hungry? Or do I help this person who's a total stranger and I don't know what he's up to? But just then, as I'm pressed ahead on this existential question, this blonde, kind of blondish woman about the age of the man comes in and picks him up off the floor and is consoling him. This is quite the production, and I'm thinking this is quite the Saturday afternoon. So after a while, he stops crying and he's probably emotionally drained. And I'm watching the scene, just the three of us. And eventually she's able to get him onto his feet, onto a chair. And she explains to me that she's Virginia and he's Harold Rudd. And the stories that you've been telling about the restaurant. Harold apologized, I guess, to some degree, if he can catch his breath. Later, when we had dinner together, they told me this story, and it was very touching and all that. I really didn't have a whole lot of contact with the Rudds because I'm from California and they're from the East Coast. I did see Harold play once at the meeting place. It was quite memorable. I don't know what pitch is, but I'm sure whatever Tina just described is exactly what Harold had or didn't have. Any connection between a note and harmony was unique to Harold. But Raphael, I got to know pretty well because he moved to California at a point. And in fact, we would have savasas, urban savasas at our house. And we had Raphael play on 2 occasions. And there were about 100 people here. I remember the last time he played, it was for the kids, although the adults came as well. And it was warm out, I recall that. And the door was open to the front door. Some of you have been to our home. And I remember within a day or so, one of the neighbors came to me and said, "Who was that pianist that played at your house? That was otherworldly." I think that Raphael played music unique to himself from another place. Maybe I can't say enough about piano, or I'm not qualified to speak about piano well enough. But he reminds me of two other friends I had in the Baba world who have passed. Robbie Basho, who was a unique soul, and Steve Shev, who also passed. Some of you may know or have known of Robbie Basho and Steve Shev. They were friends of mine, but they weren't really for this time. Neither was Raphael. He was a sweet soul, but the three of them really weren't capable of functioning that well in the material world. It was a confusing arena for them in some ways. And near the end of Raphael's life, he had some problems. He had moved to LA, as you know. He had a girlfriend and problems that occurred, and I was a lawyer, and he would call me periodically to try and help him. But a lot of the problems weren't legal problems. They were more commonsensible problems or life problems. And I tried really hard from the bottom of my heart to be of help to him, because I knew from my experience with Robbie, who had passed, and Steve, who hadn't quite passed yet, but would pass, that these are beautiful souls that Bob had given us. They brought us beautiful music and kindness and charm and otherworldliness in some way. And I thought it was the responsibility of those of us maybe a little more grounded in the material world. I'm saying I'm very gross. To help these kind of people. It was kind of our duty in a way. And so I did what I could for Raphael and his girlfriend, who was even more spacey at that time than he was. But it really was just, it seemed chaotic in its own way. And no matter what I could do, it was 400 miles away in any event. It wouldn't have been any real assistance. But I just tried to encourage him and be a brother to him, you might say. I was older than he. I was born in 46. He was born in 57 as Duke's. So that was my experience with Raphael Rudd. He suffered a great deal from what I could tell at the end of his life. And he was a beautiful soul, and he entertained at our home. And I loved him. I loved his heart. I love him. And I just want to say that. Jamie and Bob.
Hey, Baba Allen, thank you for bringing that part to us. And Jane, I see your hands up, sweet.
Yeah, hey, Baba. I just want to say that I can't stand longer, so I want to tell you all this, but that Harold used to go here at Marina, Master Valley in Manhattan, and he told Virginia about Baba, and he actually kind of forced her down to Myrtle Beach. He's the one that brought her to Baba. And at one point, when Baba was in Myrtle Beach, he threw himself at Baba's feet and said, he's so dramatic that you could never know when he was being real or not. So he threw himself at Baba's feet and said, take away all Virginia's pain. I want it. I want her to be happy, and I will take on any pain. And people started laughing, like, oh, yeah, right. And Baba said, no, he's not joking. So he had a great heart. And yeah, he was up for the years. And he suffered a lot. He did suffer a lot. He slept under the dining table because he couldn't sleep in bed. He was on sleeping pills, so he was kind of always slurring all day. But he adored his family, and he did whatever he could. And had to stay at Sal's cabin forever and ever. So that was hard. He wanted to be a famous. So that's it. And Raphael suffered too, but he played beautifully, and he was like a 2-year-old, pure soul. And Virginia kind of was like my mother for years. She just was beautiful. And Baba said that she had his love. He was talking about his love in Myrtle Beach, and Baba pointed to Virginia, that she has my love already. She has that kind of heart. So anyway, thank you, Lucy and Angela.
Jane, thank you, honey. Thank you so much. I could see Harold falling at Baba's feet. What an incredible story that is. Whew. Let's see here. Duke? I'm trying to see. Yeah. Or Bet. Yeah, Duke. Go ahead, honey.
Yeah, I'll just be quick.
Okay. take as much time.
To pick up on what Jane was saying, it's easy to think of Harold, those of you who met him and got to know him a bit, it's easy to think of Harold as somebody who was clowning around and was eccentric and making us laugh. And he was all of those things, but he was also very serious. I remember a time when we were having a glass of wine at the Rudds, and Harold couldn't handle even a single drop of alcohol. But once in a while he would ask for some. If we poured him a glass of wine, he had a glass of wine, and then he started to recite at length lines from Shakespearean drama, and entertained us, and just was captivating with the way he just recalled the lines of the plays. He also dabbled in that moment. He also was able to recite from Shelley and Keats and some of the Romantic poets. Even though Virginia was the professor, Harold was in his youth a serious actor, and he had a very serious way about him, as well as that sort of crazy clowning around side of him as well. He was multi-dimensional at the very least.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, when I look at that picture of him looking at Baba, when Baba's reaching out to him and Harold turns, in his eyes say it all for me. I can understand what you're saying. Very. And you know, also Virginia felt, when I watched the videos and when I saw her, she seemed so happy and so in love. And so for Harold to ask Baba to give her pain to him, she was so light. It just somehow struck me. Thank you both. Jai Baba. Betty?
Just have a quick memory. Raphael was a guest at LA Sahavas, which is really the only time I had met him. But I remember walking up to the meeting hall and he was practicing. And my God, that it was just thunderous. The music, he put such power into his playing. It was just astonishing his music was really otherworldly and so strong and beautiful. And I remembered, I think I have this right, that afterwards he needed to soak his fingers because they were bruised. He played with such intensity that his hands, they needed to recover. I hope I have that right. That's what I remember. He was also, I remember, very tender and very dear, you got a feeling that he felt it was his mission from Baba to reach heart to heart, kind of with anyone he was interacting with. He was quite a guy, Raphael. That's all. Thank you.
Beautiful. That's beautiful, Betty. Thank you. And Diana. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba to you all. I'd like to piggyback on what Betty was saying. I also was at that LA Sahavas and was very impressed with Raphael's playing. After we had a Baba lover in the group, Chris Haffenden, who was a musician and he was a piano tuner. And after the Sahavas, he would have to retune the piano and, as he said, also repair it because of the amount of energy that Raphael put into his music, you know, and into his piano playing. Raphael's music has been recorded some places, but I just found this particular, talk about tape, this is a tape called Reflections that I have from who knows how far back, and it is so beautiful. Doubt that it's still out there, but highly recommended. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, Diana. Thank you. Bob?
That made me think of walking past Dilruba at one point and hearing Raphael play. It was something classical, very beautiful. And I knew, of course, that Kitty was there listening. to this. That's the only way he would have gotten on that piano. And Kitty, of course, had been a pianist and a piano teacher for many years herself, and was very discerning, but she loved to listen to Raphael play.
Thank you. Thank you. And Denise, did you have something you wanted to say, honey? I'm looking here. Did you want to speak, Denise? Yeah, go ahead and unmute yourself. I know you got to look for that little button there.
All right.
Excellent.
I first met the Rudds in 1981 through my sister Debbie, and I was in Nashville working. I was doing a show for 9 months, and the run of the show was about to be finished, and I was going to stay there because of songwriting. And she said, I'm going to be making a recording with someone by the name of Bob Brown, and he is a brilliant songwriter, probably the most brilliant that I've ever heard. And, you know, they want to know if you could come and help me with background vocals on it. And this was going to be a production that he did to present to people in, it wasn't a Baba, it was a different type of album, but the songs were so brilliant. So I ended up, you know, coming back to New Jersey, and that's where I met everyone. I wasn't a Baba lover. And so I first started meeting both guys and everyone else in the studio. And then we would rehearse many times at the house. And it was my first introduction to the Rudds by walking into the house. I remember one afternoon, and the first thing I saw, I went in the back kitchen door. I don't know why I didn't go in the front door. And I saw Harold laying on the floor under the dining room table with his legs up in the chairs. And this is years before I became a chiropractor. So I didn't really, I didn't know. So it was interesting to me that he was laying on the floor. And then all of a sudden a dog came out, and it had no hair. It was a poodle with no hair, and it was kind of shaking like this, and it kept bumping into the wall over and over. And then Virginia came in, and I hadn't met her yet. And she was so caring of that dog. And she picked that dog up as if it was this beautiful, specially groomed dog that was of royalty. And she picked the dog up in her hands with so much love and carried it out as if, I can't even explain it, but I saw that loving connection, and I just fell in love with her. I just thought, I don't know this woman, but I love her. And and then she had this cat, and the cat it was kind of a blonde cat, and it liked Virginia a lot, but it hated Bob Brown. and Bob called it Poo Poo Kitty. And I remember it clearly because I took pictures of it. So he said, Poo Poo Kitty. And he kind of looked at it, and he's gentle. He was a wonderful man. But for some reason, he would say something, the cat would hiss and walk away for whatever reason. So I said, what do you think that is? And then he said, well, you can't believe what the cat did. And I said, what did the cat do? So they had been rehearsing, just the two of them. And he told me the story of how he left his Martin guitar, like any of us would do, if you just lay it down or whatever in the case or whatever, and walked away, which we would all do. And the cat went over there on its own, and it peed in the sound hole of his Martin. So those are the things I'm remembering, you know, as I was there. And I remembered what I loved about it. I was living in New York City at the time and commuting back and forth. And what I loved about their house and their dynamic as a family was that it was all acceptance and all love. And everyone had their kind of uniqueness because they were all artists. And they had their own kind of vibration. And I mean, Harold, when he got up from the nap, he sounded like he was drunk to me. And I know he never drank, but I was a stranger in the house. I didn't know. He said, hey, honey, how are you, honey? Or that's a bad impression, but he kind of talked with his speech kind of like this. And so it was kind of like, you know, we would almost think he was drunk, but he wouldn't, but he wasn't. And the parties that they had there, the Baba parties, all I can say is that they were magical, because there was so much explosive talent and creativity all in one place, with everyone celebrating Baba and celebrating spontaneity and coming from a place of love. I would leave there and I would just be high. I would just, you know, and I'm still saying that's before I came to Baba, but I was coming to Baba not knowing that, right? Not knowing that it was the vibration of all of them. And just a few more things is that I took a few notes. I just wanted to, Raph was so much fun. He was so much fun. And a lot of people knew him as the great musician that he was, but he was literally like a brother to me, because anyway, I was always invited to do various things with a group of people, and he loved his dad and his parents so much, but he loved to laugh with them, and he loved their uniqueness. An example is he'd say, "Watch this," and for gas, his father would always come, "Rolf, you go to Paul Shell, you get gas at Paul Shell, forget." And it was I think it was a gas station. Duke, I remember you. I don't know if you remember me, but I remember you from way back when. I love your stories. It was, I thought it was on the corner of Kingsland and Center Street or something, maybe Franklin Avenue, but it was this place where he liked to go get gas. And then Raph loved to watch his father order food through the drive-through. He was so entertained, and Harold was incredibly thoughtful, though. He's just so thoughtful. I could just see him as a waiter that would be a really good waiter. Or if he would be cleaning tables, he did everything with love and this purity and spontaneity. The last time I saw the Rudds all together, oh, the other story about Raph, I just want to tell you, the brother thing. He's the only person I've ever known in my life that would call me every Sunday morning at 3 a.m. during my single years. Now, why did he do that? It's because we lived in the same town, and I didn't know this until later, but I was living alone. I was doing gigs. We had the same booking agent in New York, Stephen Scott Music, and there were all these gigs on Saturday nights that we'd all be sent out to do. And so I'd get home probably 3 or 4 in the morning, and so would he. And my sister Deanna asked him, I didn't know this without my knowledge, to call me, you know, once he got in from his gig, to make sure I got in okay. Aww. So that's the type of guy he was. He was very caring and loving that way. And a lot of, as Duke was saying, he did a lot of special things for his friends just out of pure love. And I think when you have an only child, their friends are even more dear. They become their family, you know, so that's how he was with me. And I just loved him dearly. The last time I saw all 3 of them was in the 90s. I was at the center, and I was invited to their home for a pizza night. So I was at the Baba Center, but then I went off and had the pizza night. And the thing that I remember about it more than anything was, number one, I loved being with all 3 of them again. I just loved it so much. And the thing that Raph, he always liked to share his food with everyone. It was like one of his things, try this, you got to try this. You know, he was always excited about sharing his food. And he said, come on. He said, we're gonna have a garlic pizza. And I said, Raph, I love garlic too. And he's like, no, we're gonna have a garlic pie. So they had this big giant pizza, and literally I helped him because I was doing it with him. It was his idea. We took an entire bulb of garlic and put it on that one pie. And it was quite memorable, I might say. But anyway, I miss him. I miss him so much. I miss his laugh, and I miss his music and his creativity. But I know that they were just supposed to be here at a certain time. They probably have other bodies now, but they are happy together too. They're still happy, and they've probably been together for lifetimes. That's about it.
So beautiful. Thank you so much, Jai Baba.
Bob.
That's great stories. Oh, all right. Duke. Jay Baba. Thanks.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that the poodle's name was Mike. And the cat's name was Kitty. And also that anytime Melinda and I would visit Virginia and Harold, it would also be pizza night, and she'd serve the pizza, but then there would be a bowl of peeled garlic. And the expectation was that you would spread all of that raw garlic all over your slice. And of course we did. So it was a family thing rather than just the thing that Raph did. And just one more thing I would mention, and some of you have hinted at this, but I think it's worth mentioning, the Rudd's generosity was just amazing. Just a quick story. Raph and I were at the Empire Diner in New York City one day, and they had a beautiful little piano there, an upright, but a very nice one. And I said, Raph, go ahead, play. The place was packed. It was late night. I said, go ahead, play. He said, no, only if we play together. So it was the first time we played four hands piano. And I say the first time because once we did that, there were other occasions where we could do it again, and he always insisted that we do it together. And this is a guy who could have entertained the masses for many hours on his own, but he brought me into it, wanted me to be a part of that experience. Generosity, I could go on about Virginia and Harold's generosity as well, especially Virginia's maybe, but anyway, I'll let Jeff go.
Okay. You know, I didn't know really much about the Rudds, you know, when I was working at the center, and this young kid, I don't know, I might have been just about 14, and there'd all be this hubbub and everything. And this was when you had the little meeting place. And this kid would come in there and he would be electrifying on the piano. I mean, Kitty would be there, and I mean, the whole place would be electrified with this prodigy. You know, it was really something. And one time when I was there before the program, and a couple of the musicians were horrified because one of the keys on the piano was dead. And Raphael was going to be, you know, playing several numbers. And they're just like, oh my God, and there's nothing we can do. It was too late. It was the last moment. But Raph just went in there and played these pieces, and these really, you know, expert, you know, musicians couldn't even tell that, but he had sidestepped that one key that was dead, and he may have found a way of him compensating, because he compensated three numbers, I think it was, and he compensated missing one of the major keys right in the middle of the piano. I don't even know which one it was, but it was, and without the least, you know, I mean, most people would be very critical. You know, you give me this kind of piano, you know, this, I can't play. He just jumped in and went for it and lifted the whole house. So what a guy.
I think I was there for that, Jeff.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was. Well, listen, I'm going to just take a quick moment and show this little snippet from Virginia's story. And at least I think I am. Maybe not. Let's see what I have here. Well, I had it keyed up. It might take me a minute. If anybody else wants to share anything, I'll just see what I did with it. Sorry about this. I know I did have it queued, but I lost it.
Hey, Ruthie, I have something to share.
Oh, go ahead, honey.
So I knew all three of them, but the one I knew the most was Raphael. And I never called him Rafe. I always called him Raphael. And my first so I lived in Washington, so I didn't get down to the center that much because of all the things I was doing. But I remember one time I was down there, and I think it was summer, and I was walking by the meeting house, and all of a sudden I heard this incredible music. And I walked in, and there was Raphael just banging away, Gujarati Arti. I mean, I just stood there transfixed, and I just listened to him. He was practicing for that night's performance at the meeting room. Yeah, meeting place, sorry. Anyway, well, I think I fell in love with Raphael, probably because of his music, and just, I loved him. I mean, I just adored him, and loved his music. Anything Raphael did, I loved. And we didn't get to be that close. He was close at that time. He was hanging out with Jeff and Bob and Jane. So I often found myself with all of them. And of course I was singing and playing my guitar, because I did a lot of that, a lot more of that back then. And somehow we became friends. And, you know, whenever I'd see him, he knew, I let him know how much I appreciate his music. So there was the music connection between us was really strong. And I remember one year on my birthday, he called me up in Washington, and he played Happy Birthday for me. And then he played the Gujarati Arti, and then several other he knew that my favorite was Gujarati Arti. And I mean, it was one of the best birthdays, you know, because of that. And, you know, whenever he was at the center, we always found some time to talk. And of course, I was at anything musical he did. And then, of course, he went out to California, and I can't remember where his accident took place, but somehow, I don't know whether I called him or talked with him or whatever, but I still have a final note he sent to me, and I'll always keep it. And it was basically these two bears sitting together like an old married couple. And he said something like, just remembering all the great times together, or something like that. It was so loving. It was really beautiful. And it was after he'd hurt his hands. I mean, I have it, I could read it, but anyway, I just wanted to share that. I adored him. And of course, I know that Howard Rudd was a great actor and was very funny, but I didn't know him as well as some of you did. But I just wanted to share that. I still miss Raphael, and he does have CDs. He did, I think, Sky Dancer, and I think there are at least 2 or 3 that he's done. And I don't know if you can still get them from Shariar or where, but Jeff probably knows. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, Elizabeth. Thank you. What a great story. Just such a sweet soul, and you bring it forward. Thank you.
Oh,
okay.
I forgot. I have one more thing.
Sure.
So when Raphael died, I was living in Austin, and I would go in the mornings for this walk around this small lake in a kind of a wooded area off of a kind of a more or less a kind of medium-sized road. But anyway, the point that morning I was walking around, and there was this gigantic blue heron that flew over and landed in a tree. And I thought, oh my gosh, I said, that is beautiful. And I needed to go to work. And I said, I said, boy, I sure would like to see your wings again. But anyway, what happened is this heron did a bow. So I mimicked it and did a bow back. The heron did the same thing again. He did it like 3 or 4 times. And then I said, oh, I'd love to see you fly one more time. And the heron took off right then. And later I found out that Raphael had passed away, and I thought, was this that soul just coming to say goodbye in the form of a heron? I know that may sound crazy, but I do think that can happen. That anyway, I always associate that particular heron with Raphael. So
thank you, Elizabeth. That's beautiful. I don't think it's crazy a bit. Well, I'll just read some things Jane Brown had forwarded from Mark Lambert, who also knew the Rudds. Yeah, okay. It says, I knew Raphael Rudd well because I played in a lot of bands with his son. I'm sorry. I knew Harold Rudd well because I played in a lot of bands with his son, Raphael. We all lived in Nutley, New Jersey. He was such a colorful character, unlike any other person I ever met. A few stories come to mind. Raphael and I were rehearsing with our new band, the Rays, in their home. After the rehearsal, everyone had left, and I stayed around to talk a bit about some stuff with Raph. Around 11, Harold walked in, dressed in his uniform, his waiter's uniform from Pal's cabin, where he worked. It kind of looked like some kind of tuxedo. I can't remember if all the waiters dressed like that or just Harold. I said hello to him and asked him how he was, but he walked right by us into the kitchen, made himself a banana milkshake, which he brought back to the living room. He sat down on a chair next to us and began to drink the whole blender full of milkshake in one gulp. Raph and I just watched him incredulously. When he finally finished drinking, he put the blender jar down, let out an enormous burp, and then looked at me and said, I'm fine, Mark, how are you? Another time, Raph and I were already at a gig setting up our equipment when Raph realized that he had left his sustain pedal for the piano, his electric piano at home. He had to talk with the club owner about some money issues, so he asked me to please go to the home and get it. The club was not far from Nutley, so I got there in no time and rang the bell. There was no answer, so I rang it again. I could hear the TV on, so I went around to the side of the house, looked in the window, and there was Harold lying on the floor with his feet up on a chair watching TV. Smart guy. So finally, I started banging on the window until he finally saw me. He got up and walked over to the window and said, Mark, what are you doing by the window? I told him that I had tried ringing the bell, but there was no answer. I explained that I needed that pedal for Raph's piano, and could he please let me in? He then opened the window wide and gestured for me to enter. No, Harold, could I please just use the front door? He said, sure, pal. The last story was the one that Ralph told me. He said that he and Harold, oh yeah, this is great. He and Harold were driving down to Myrtle Beach with Ralph at the wheel, and he was known to have a heavy foot. As he was speeding down the highway, they passed under an overpass where a cop was sitting, waiting. Suddenly, the red lights and the siren went on. Ralph started to sweat, didn't slow down, and said, Dad, listen, I already have 11 points on my license. If I get a speeding ticket, they'll take my license away. Harold said, what should we do? Ralph explained that they would pull the car over, but as they were doing this, they would ever so subtly change places with one of them by sliding behind the other, so that the car, when it came to a complete stop, Harold be sitting in the driver's seat. They managed to pull this off without the cop noticing. But when the cop started walking towards their car, Harold suddenly jumped out of the car and with a crazed look on his face said, oh, officer, so glad that you are here. We are lost. Can you please give us directions to Myrtle Beach? The cop eyed Harold rather suspiciously and thought that they may have been that he may have been under the influence of substance. He made Harold walk a straight line and gave him a breathalyzer test. Listen, old man. Oh, much to his surprise, Harold was totally sober. The cop then said to him, listen, old man, I am not going to give you a ticket on one condition, that you trade places and let your son drive. Harold thanked him, got in the passenger side, and Rolf moved over and took the wheel. After they were out of earshot of the cop, they burst out laughing. Thank you for asking me to be part of the tribute. I miss Harold as I do Raphael and Virginia. They were remarkable people and left a strong mark on my life. So thank you so much. Again, that's from Mark Lambert. And Jane, thank you for helping connect with him. All right, Alan, go ahead.
I got Karen Talbot here.
Yay.
Hi, everybody. I just came in. Say, Baba, I have a wonderful memory.
Happy Mother's Day.
Yeah, I have many memories of Raphael playing at the center at a church in Oakland when he would come here. Yeah. And also, I think Alan said he mentioned at our home. And one time when he was at our home, there were so many people that had come to listen to him that the fire department would not have allowed so many in the house. I think the Sufis came and they asked if there should be a certain number. And I said, no, just come. And it was so tight. But the memory I wanted to share was in 1978. I came down to the center from New York, and Raphael was playing Kitty's piece on the piano, which is an absolutely spectacularly beautiful piece. And Casey Cook was dancing. Huh? So that's just what came to my mind. And I'm so pleased to know that the Rudd family is being remembered today. Jai Baba. Thank you.
Hey, Baba. Thank you so much, Karen. I've been wondering, I thought Kitty's piece was written by Tuck Andrus, and I was searching and searching for it. No wonder I couldn't find it. It was Raphael's piece.
I think it's on that double CD that Raphael did.
So beautiful.
By Pete Townsend. Beautiful double CD. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, yes, it is a beautiful double CD.
He's doing money.
I'm gonna,
No.
Okay. I'm gonna try to pull up this video. I'm sorry that I did have it keyed, but I think it may take a minute. So let's see. Did I lose it again? No.
I'm unaware of anything or anybody. All I can recall is a beautiful and everybody, Gabriel, everybody. So I had gone, and she had said to me, "You belong to Meher Baba." And I said, I belong to myself. I don't belong to anybody. So when I heard she was down there, I thought, well, that's a minus point too. So they said, Kitty says, now you each get 5 minutes. And Harold starts screaming. He was a good one to start screaming all the time. And he said, 5 minutes? I didn't drive down here just for 5 minutes. I have a lot to tell him. So I was still young then and a little embarrassed. And I pulled Margaret over and I said, give him my 5 minutes. I don't need to see this guy, no matter how you feel about me. And she says, Nothing doing. I'm not letting off you. I'm gonna, if I have to, I'll push you in. So I said, oh God. All right, let them do what they want. Can't hurt me. And so finally, the door opened and Harold disappeared. After his 5 minutes, the door opens again and Margaret escorts me in, pushing me. I went inside and nothing else can be done. I become completely unconscious. I'm stupefied. I'm unaware of anything or anybody. All I can recall is a beautiful golden light. And I'm up in the sky someplace. Everything was beautiful and golden. And I was divinely happy. I didn't have to argue with anybody. I was there. They said Baba sat me on his lap and he kissed me and hugged me and told me how much he loved me, but I was never there, never. The next thing I remember is 3 hours later, I came to. I was sitting behind the barn on those stone seats that are back there. And I came to very slowly, still dazed, not really conscious. Next thing I knew, I was in the car with Harold driving back home. I was divinely happy.
Wow.
I was in love. I was in love with somebody I had never seen, never even wanted to see. I don't know how I did it. I came home, I've been in love ever since.
That was gorgeous.
Yeah, and you know, Duke was saying the one that's come out from the center this last week or before is kind of even better in a way. But certainly that segment, yeah. Wow, that required some silence. That was just sublime. Anybody else? We have a few minutes. Yes, go ahead, Denise.
I wanted to know if Jeff Wolverton was going to sing "I Like My Women Big and Around."
Oh, I think that's appropriate. All right, Jeff, come on. You're muted. We can't hear you. You're singing it.
Oh.
Muted?
No,
okay.
no, those are the only lines I remember, but I'm sure Duke must know that.
Yeah, well, of course I do.
Oh, good.
The
Great.
song goes like this. I like my women big and round. I like my women big and round. I like my women plump and sound. There's comfort to be found in a woman big and round. Well, you can keep those fancy dames who take diet pills and worry about calories and allergies and are always in a hurry. I like my women big and round. I like my women plump and sound because there's comfort to be found in a woman big and round. And, you know, Harold had played it on the piano. Of course, he accompanied himself. Thank you, Denise. And there was one chord he was not quite ready to get every time. So he always, so the line was, and are always in a, and then we'd always be waiting for it.
Yes,
Hurry.
Yes. He would do it with his phrasing. He goes, and always in a. Boring. That would
You
come
do a
out
great
next.
impression.
At the end of every phrase. It was so funny.
And for years after, Mark Lambert, speaking of Mark, and I would sing it to each other on occasion, and we'd always pause right there before hurry because that was the way it needed to be delivered.
Oh.
Oh, man.
What better way to end the discussion of Harold than on that irreverent note, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Why don't we have a moment of silence? Jai Baba.
You know, I think what spiritual master except Baba would have three close ones like these three? You know, I mean, they're totally outside the norm. That's so beautiful. I mean, Baba's like a universality. You know, Erich used to say the sign that you're in the court of the avatar is that all of humanity is there. He said other masters have people that are kind of spiritually minded, but with Baba, he has the whole family, you know. It's great.
Well, I like the information about Pascal as well, Gabriel Pascal. Did Harold hear about Baba from him? Do you know, Duke, or anybody? You're muted, Duke.
I don't remember if it was Harold or Virginia who first knew about Pascal. I'm not sure about that.
No, I mean, well, I know that I'm not sure where Harold heard about Baba.
Through Norina, I think.
Harold heard about Baba from Norina. Harold was a real seeker as a young man who used to go to, you know, this week's guru was given some sort of, you know, delivery in New York somewhere, and Harold would make a point of showing up. And he went in, he only read an article in the paper that Norina was going to talk about Baba, and he said, oh, I'm going to this. Or Denise would be able to do the voice better than I could. But in any case, he went into New York, and Norina gave one of her talks about Baba, and Harold was very interested, spoke, of course, made a point of speaking with Norina directly and personally on that visit, gave her his number, and then Norina actually called the Rudd's house and wanted to speak to Harold. I think there was some other talk she was giving, or wanted to let Harold know about it. And then the whole thing sort of developed from there. There was one point, and Virginia tells this part of the story in the video that I was mentioning, how Norina called the Rudd's house one day, and Harold wasn't in. So Virginia picked up, and Norina said to Virginia, is Harold there? And Virginia said, no, he's not home. Who is this? And then she, of course, introduced herself. She said, well, you must get a message to Harold. He's on the path. And Virginia said, oh, is he really? Okay, I'll get him the message. And it just, it all developed from there. That was Harold's contact with Baba was through Norina. And Virginia's technically also, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess I had seen somewhere, I think on Wikipedia, that Harold was Gabriel's secretary. That's what they had in, I think it was Wikipedia, that at some point Harold Rudd was his secretary.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
So was Gabriel Pascal, he was a filmmaker, and my understanding is he missed a last chance to see Baba, but was he a big Baba lover, or?
Yeah.
Did you already talk about his story, his relationship?
I just brought it up now that there was connection between he and Harold.
And Baba was interested in having Pascal make a biographical film, or a film about Baba's life or spirituality, or I don't know what the plan was exactly, but Baba and Pascal were talking about that possibility. Obviously, it never came to fruition.
So we just read about it in one of the reading books I was in, and that he was supposed to come, and he had made a date with Baba to come, and he couldn't keep that date, and they wondered what had happened to him. And he basically got sick and he died. He missed the chance. For some reason, he wasn't able to make it. But I'm trying to remember which reading group that was in. It might have been a Gift of God, or it might have been, I don't know.
Well, he did get to see Baba. He was with Baba. And the thing was, there's a beautiful excerpt, believe it or not, in Wikipedia. And there's one section about he meets Meher Baba. And so it goes on to tell how he came, and he brought 2 writers with him. And Baba, they discussed, and that Pascal really took to the life. He really took to that simple life. And he stayed in India for a bit. And that there were other occasions. Duke's shaking his head, so you guys already know this stuff. But
it's pretty well detailed in Lord Mayhair also.
Beautiful. What a connection. Rosalie, did you want to say something, Rosalie?
I have a question, because I'm surprised it didn't come up at all. But remember when he got beat up at Blockbuster, and they were really concerned about his hands, and then I remember that. I was in California, but I remember he somehow got beat up at Blockbuster.
Are you talking about Raphael?
And he ended up marrying the woman and going off to California with her finally, who helped him recover, the physical therapist, I guess she was. Anyway, I'm surprised no one brings that up. I mean, that was such a big deal for him because of his hands. And
sure.
It was right in Myrtle Beach, right on 17 there.
Incredible suffering. Thank you, Rosalie.
And I remember they had parted somehow. They lived in California when I was still there, and they parted, they separated, they divorced, whatever. And I remember her doing a dance. And it was interesting. It reminded me of Elizabeth talking about the beautiful bird, the beautiful big bird, because she didn't tattoo, but she had her body like bird wings, and she did this amazing dance. Because what it made me think of was how for everyone he was so present for every friend or whatever. And imagine if you were married to him and he was very present, and if he took that, somehow that ended, it must have been really hard. I remember her dance and thinking, I don't think he lasted too much longer, maybe a year after they broke up or something, and then the car crash and he died. But yeah, he had the suffering, just the suffering. Yeah. And I remember him, I was as fascinated by his music as he would do a dance at the keyboard. I remember him in the little Baba meeting place in West Los Angeles. He'd be playing incredibly and it just jumping around. And I tried to get the closest seat so I could see him move, because he was like unleashed with his playing. You know, it was an amazing experience to be. And I remember going to, he had a group or something called Renaissance. And I made a special trip to go to, he was trying to connect in with a sort of a rock group kind of, and yeah. I was disappointed. Jane's voice was cutting out, and I missed a lot of what she was saying, and I didn't feel happy about missing it. Because she knew him very well and the family, and yeah, I missed the last part was starting to cut out. Yeah. A blue bus flat tire, I call it. Yeah. Anyway, this was wonderful to hear all about the lives. I mean, what it makes me feel of how unique every life is, and how important, because of Baba, that connection with Baba. And just this morning I woke up, and I was so happy because I woke up with this, it's kind of like a prayer of Erich. He's just talking plain and simple. Life is a joy with Baba, with him. Without him, it is not. Joy is living with him. This is the new life. You are living to the heart, not the mind. He is the deeper self. There is no one to love except yourself. Love yourself more and more. This is your inner being. It's so perfect from someone that knew about that closeness. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, Rosalie. So beautiful. And thank you for just the picture of Raphael dancing at the piano. The power that he played. You really brought that.
Yeah, at that point, he was kind of overweight for how I remember him at first.
Yeah,
he was pouring sweat and just hopping up and down. And, of course, he was actively playing. He was still playing. He didn't just flail his arms, but it was amazing to see him playing. I mean, it was like, whoa. Yeah. I mean, it was like going to some wild dance. A wild dance where he was the band and he was the dance. And I mean, it was the whole thing. Yeah.
We all want to go there. Well, there's somebody here. I can't see who it is on the iPhone. Who is that?
Fred Stankus, Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Yeah, I met, first time I met Raphael Rudd was at Ruth Rosen's and Bert Rosen's house at a Baba, like a weekday meeting or weekend meeting in Sands Point. And he played, I guess it's called the harp, or is that the harp?
Yes.
And he played it so magnificently. And I was so enamored by this obsession and passion. And also, when I did the public access TV show, Mir Baba program, I used his Sky Dancer as the theme music for the program. And also another song called Seasons. And he was amazing with his music. And in the LA group, he was also involved with us. But he was really amazing. And I was very privileged to know him.
Jai Baba, Fred.
Fred, do you remember when that gathering at the Rosen's house was?
It was in the 70s. I think, let's say I bought my car in 77, must have been 78, I think.
Yeah, it was, and I was there.
Yeah. I left the bus at their house when I went to India, And of course, they had this whiteout snowstorm. So when I came back, the car was buried and parked at their home.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Raph also did his master's thesis performance there for the Manhattan School of Music at the Rosen House. It was a beautiful day right on their lawn, and the lawn stretching out to the Long Island Sound. Just, you know, and beautiful music. He played solo harp, he played solo piano, and also had a band, an acoustic band with him that day. A very memorable occasion too. Yeah, the Rosen House. Yeah.
In fact, I think Bjorn Borg bought a house right next to them. That great tennis player.
Yeah.
Sands Point.
Yeah, I think I spoke with Greg not too long ago. I think he said the house is now valued at, you know, several $1 million.
At least.
He only wishes that he still owned it, but he doesn't.
Oh no! In fact, the first time we came there, well, not the first time. When I brought my wife to New York, and we stopped at Sands Point unannounced, you know, to meet the Rosens. It was a mid-afternoon, and so the first house is the guest house when you drive on, and then you drive into the area there, and then suddenly we just started to sit on the grass overlooking the Sound, and this gentleman comes out in a robe. "Excuse me, who are you?" I said, "Hello, this Fred Stankus." "Oh, Bert Rosen greeted us." But that was amazing. I showed Gigi, you know, I used to work in the airline business in New York in Islip. And so that's why I got connected with Raphael and the New York Baba people. We go to the Baba house downtown now and then. Anyway, those are some great times.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, go ahead, Rosie.
Oh, I remembered Virginia Rudd being a guest at the LA Sahavas, and she was so quick mentally and funny that I'm of a bent for comedy, and she was like a good stand-up comedian. Giving her Baba talk. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I had the same birthday as her, which I found interesting. Yeah.
So you're a Gemini.
Oh, yeah. Probably an overdose of Gemini. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, does anyone have anything else they might want to bring forward? Somebody asked me if I would show the video again. So if you guys want, if you want to go, doesn't matter. But I think sometimes people come late and they miss the photos of the family. So they asked if I'd show it again so they could see some photos of the family. So I'll go ahead and do that. If I can find, there we go.
Thank you, Ruby.
Yes. Hannah Meyer is trying to get on, but it's a little late. Yeah, I know. What am I going to do? Let me see. Where is it? Here, this must be it. Yeah. Okay, let's start it back. I'll send her the password while we look at this.
Beloved Mayhair Baba, come into our lives and let there be just you. Let there be just you. Beloved Mayhair Baba, annihilate all strife, and let there be just you. Let there be just you. We've searched for you so long, joy in love prolong. I am your song. Beloved, may Herr Baba come into our hearts. Let there be just you. Let there be just you. Beloved, may Herr Baba come into our lives, and let there be just you. Let there be just you. Beloved, may Herr Baba annihilate all strife, and let there be just you. Let there be just you. We've searched you so long to right whatever's wrong. Your joy in love prolong. I am your song. Beloved, may Herr Baba come into our hearts. Let there be just you. Let there be just you. Let there be just you. Let there be just
I know that song is haunting, isn't it?
Yeah.
As soon as I heard it, I just happened to be listening to David Nordine's CD for some music for some videos, and I didn't know that this was Harold Rudd's song. So I had two songs that I picked out, and I called up David and I said, "Can I use some of your music for these videos that I'm doing for the Mandali?" And he said, sure. He said, and we started to, which ones? And so I named this song and that song. And Beloved Mayor Baba, he said, well, Harold Rudd wrote that song. And so I realized that, it was just perfect. Baba just gave me the song I needed to put with this video that I was making. And I think he also said something to the effect that, Harold Rudd was kind of his hero, David Nordine. He really... he really got him, and I love David too, so I can just see the two of them together.
But that's David singing Harold's song?
Yeah.
Huh.
You're welcome, VJ. Happy to do it.
Ruthie, I thought you were going to play Virginia. Do you have time to play the Virginia Rudd video again?
What you mean, the part about her seeing Baba? Or?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, you have to cue it up.
Oh, you want to see it? Okay, I can do that. And just hang on.
Was David Rudd a brother of Harold or a?
No, this is David Nordine.
Oh, David Nordine. I got confused. Okay, thank you.
Of the Nordine family.
I know who it is.
Yeah. See, Rosalie, you'll just be singing it all day.
Yeah. I can hear it. It's so devotional. It's
Yes.
so incredible. Yeah.
It is. It's just, it is. It's simple and beautiful.
Yeah.
VJ, go ahead,
Yeah.
sweet. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It was wonderful. And I just wanted to ask a question. I met him at New York in 1978, Raphael. And then later on, maybe after the accident, say 2000, 2000. And then he visited India also. And I saw such a transformation in his personality. And that was really, means I could notice that. And it was really surprising to me that how through all these years he was transformed, such a humble person and nice person. So I just want to know if anybody you means agree with me or you noticed something like that.
Like Jane Brown she knew him for eons. She would be the one that would.
Well, Jane's not here. She's gone now.
Yeah.
But I wonder if Duke had any sense about that.
Yeah, I do have a sense of it. As I mentioned in my my earlier presentation, I didn't spend much time and I wasn't in much contact with Raph in the last 10 years or so of his life. But I do know from being close with Virginia and Harold, and especially Virginia during those years, that Raph struggled a great deal in those years and suffered, I would say, as well, physically and emotionally struggled. And I do think, and this might go to what Vijay is saying, I do think that that Raph, in his own way, benefited from that struggle and that suffering, and to use Vijay's words, transformed by it to some extent, where he became more humble and more circumspect about his life. You know, I'm not going to whitewash any of what I'm saying here. In his last years, he was dealing with an opioid addiction. He started taking the painkillers after he injured his hands, and it was a decade almost of struggle and suffering. And I reached out to him a number of times during those years, but I mainly heard about how his life was going through Virginia. And then Virginia moved to California, and Harold had already passed. Virginia moved to California. And I no longer was really in touch with the Rudds toward the very end. Certainly after Virginia passed, I was not in touch with Raph. But I did hear through a number of people that Raph was struggling and that he was struggling terribly during those years. And it's just, you know, what Baba had for him, obviously, to have that kind of struggle at the end. And as I mentioned in my presentation also, I started to find it difficult to imagine Raph having a future. And I really meant that from the heart. I felt toward the end, when I heard that he was unconscious, I just knew intuitively that he wasn't going to recover, that was his end. And it turned out it was. And I spoke with Jane. All of you know Jane. I first knew Jane when she was Jane Viscardi, and then Jane Brown, and then Jane Mossman. And I spoke with Jane about this, and I think she understood how I was feeling intuitively about Ray's. I called him Ray actually when we first met, but that's another story. But in any case, Raph's end came about. It seemed to be an end that had to happen. As Baba said, what will happen, what has to happen will happen. And for Raph, it did.
I appreciate
it. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I will say that dance that his ex-wife did, I don't even remember her name, but she was the one that helped him recover. when he was beat up and his hand was in trouble. There was suffering in that dance portrayal she did. And it's she did it at the Baba Center in Los Angeles. And there is like a little domed place that they had like a little temple kind of, and that's where she did it. And I just remember thinking, wow, what suffering was there. So she somehow, she picked up on it, being his partner. And and then the next thing I heard, he had the accident and he was gone. And I thought, wow, what an exit. Wow.
Yeah, her name was Michelle.
Michelle
Yatsko, YACSO.
Yeah.
There's an old phone tree I pulled out after you mentioned it.
Yeah,
Michelle.
She had her arms not tattooed, but the marking of a bird. And she did like this painful bird dance. It was like, wow. And it's kind of interesting because that part of Raphael, the intensity that he put in his music, it's like, and then also that he can focus on another person and make a person happy. Yeah, just feel like they were the only one, his focus. That's a beautiful gift. Yeah. Anyway.
I appreciated, the photo of Virginia with Baba at the hotel, and his hand is on her head, and that's bringing that soul. And he also said, that he would hold Virginia's hands and have her say his name, Baba, 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 7 times over and over, and that she should do that when she had her baby. Anyway, there's a whole story about that pregnancy, that beautiful pregnancy, and how Baba said that, Raph would come to the top. He would be among the top. So whatever we're talking about between all of his life experience, I think Baba had some particular direction and deep meaning. I just think this. I know that Baba said sufferings are the blessings on the spiritual path. And so I think that combination in terms of his life, Raphael's life, just are kind of maybe beyond my understanding. But I do know that the suffering was, given by Baba. And Baba also saw him as being among the top. Phil Collins and Pete Townsend, that's certainly one top, but I think it had to do with other things, and it's beyond me. I took care of heroin addicts for years as a nurse, so I know some of that life and that suffering. So I don't know. It's just Baba's work is just unfolding day by day. Go ahead, Elizabeth. What do you want to share?
Yeah, so this is the card that Raphael sent me. It was the last thing I got from him. Can you see it?
No. There you go.
And the reason I'm
down a little bit.
Yeah.
Now over a little bit. I want to see you there.
Away from the camera. A little bit away.
Which way?
Well, we can't see it at all.
Can't see it at all now.
What did I do? Okay, wait a minute. Let me see.
Put it right in front of your face, Elizabeth. We'll see it that way, right? Okay. Yeah, exactly.
Now move
now
up.
slowly toward the camera. Just slowly toward the camera. Not your face too, just the card. Just the card. Stop. Oh, and you moved it to the side. No, it's got to be in front of your face.
Okay.
Yeah. More toward the camera. More toward the camera. Yeah, we're starting to see it. It's starting to come out.
And now speak, Elizabeth, so you'll come on speaker view and you'll be big.
Oh, okay. Well, if you do spotlight, you'll see it better. But anyway, so this was toward the end of Raphael's life. I don't know whether he had already had the accident, but definitely his hands were really a problem. But the reason I'm showing it was a sweetness that came out. And you can see there are these two bears, and it says, "How sweet the years have been." Now, I didn't see him that much, but we had this strong internal connection. So the note in the card is kind of strange, but because of course we were not married, but it says, "Full of sweetness and joy and peace. Marriage is a gift from above. While the years seem to fly, none can deny that time only strengthens true love." So, I mean, I had some kind of special connection with him. And he writes, his handwriting is not good. He says, "Dear Elizabeth, can't write much, but," and then there's the message, "and lots of love. I am still I can still communicate, though. Be in touch. Lots of love, Raphael." And that was my last that I heard from him. And, you know, he probably got this card from wherever, you know, but it was really sweet, and I've kept it for years. I'll never give, I mean, it'll always be with me. And the card is called, it's a bear with me card.
Oh, I have to say that that picture of Baba with his hand on her head and the look that Harold is giving Baba, so incredible, the look, I mean, that speaks volumes, that look he's looking, you know, just total devotion, you know, he's like, yes. And because the other side was so pronounced, his, you know, frustrated career and all of that. Yeah. So it's like, you know, it's kind of just something like, I remember being in India and doing a dance, and Mara gave me 3 minutes, and it was Baba's birthday. And that was the most painful dance I've ever done. And during the dance, it was like my mind was going, "You asked to do this. This is horrible. You're in pain." I completed 3 minutes and 40 seconds, but I called it my prayer dance, because when they say the dance of life, that's all you have to offer is your life. That's all you can have to offer God. And it can be very painful, and a lot of pain does come during a lifetime, but that's your offering. That's all you have to offer. That's the bottom line. Yeah.
Beautifully said, Rosalie. I just wondered, does Denise have anything else she wanted to share?
Not that I can you hear me? No. Not that I can think of right now. I'm just loving all these stories so much.
Well, I wonder whatever happened to Bob's guitar, you know, with that cat.
Well, he did tell me, can you hear me? He did tell me that he said he had to put some rose oil in it, and I thought he told me he eventually sold it, because yeah, I think he eventually sold it. I'm pretty sure that's what he said, because I would ask him about it from time to time. I didn't really keep in touch with him a lot over the years, but you know, early on in the 80s, I was more in touch with him. But yeah,
that's great. Well, and you know, I knew him in the 70s, and that's how I ended up being in touch with Ruth Rosen, because he and Irwin were staying with the Rosens for a while in New York. And she would say to me, "Your name's Ruth Appel and you're a nurse." Well, my maiden name was Ruth Bird, and I was a nurse. We have so much, you know, we have so much in common. And so we would talk on the phone, and then finally we met at the center. But she was just because I saw those beautiful pictures of Ruth Rosen, I had to say something.
Very sweet friendship they had. They were like sisters, as far as I knew. They were very, very close. And the boys were close. I say boys like I'm like the mom. I'm the age of Raphael and Greg, but they were very close, like brothers. They were incredibly close.
So sweet. Melinda, we haven't heard from you.
I just had a quick question about, because I know that Donald Mahler was very close, right, with the Rhodes too, and I was wondering if you'd heard from him or have news of him, and yeah.
Yeah, let's see, I know Viola and I had talked about Donald coming to the celebration for Margaret Krask. And of course, it was the winter time, but he was not getting around much. And she was thinking about taking a computer to his home, but she wasn't getting around well. And it was COVID and it was winter. So, gosh, I wish I had thought of something. Thank you, Melinda.
Yeah, I'm just curious about. I would love to hear how Donald met them and how I guess he knew them from Myrtle Beach from meeting Baba too. He was down there, yeah. So.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'll check with Viola and see what's going on these days with him. Thank you. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
I was just wondering, did someone mention the video of either, it was, I'm not sure which time, but it was at the center. And when Baba was doing the meetings with people and he touched Raphael's hands, did someone already mention that? In that video, you can see him touching Raphael's hands.
Yes, honey, we saw that, and actually Duke talked about it.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that part.
No, it's okay.
And it was so nice to see that early photograph of Virginia and Harold. Virginia was quite a good-looking woman.
She was pregnant with Raph in that picture. I guess everybody understands that, or maybe not.
I didn't know that.
That's from 50. That's from 56.
With Baba's hands on her head?
Yes.
Wow. And was, well, I didn't see that. I saw him with his arm next to her and Harold was looking up.
Yeah, there are other photographs from that particular occasion. And there is one with Baba's hand on Virginia's head.
In fact,
and is that the Delmonico?
Yes, it is.
It's in the film that Ruthie showed.
Right.
With his hand on her head. And she would say that was, or I've heard people say that that's when Baba was calling soul into her body.
I'll have to go back and listen to it on tape because I missed it.
I think it was something that Erich actually later said to her, that Baba told her that was when when Raphael's soul was being placed in her.
I heard that also from Erich. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. And she didn't know she was pregnant. And the doctors couldn't get a positive pregnancy test. I mean, they couldn't get a positive pregnancy test up until birth.
Yeah.
So it was like the whole thing, just listening to her story about it is worth my telling. It isn't anywhere near. But and as I said at the beginning, Duke said that the center offering one was her at the center, and she's a little bit younger.
She's actually a lot younger, it seems to me, and she's recorded at greater length there too. She tells the story in great detail, and it's wonderful. I mean, I was riveted by it, and I heard the story so many times before from her directly, but just watching that video with Melinda and I both loved watching it. I definitely recommended it.
Yeah,
to you guys.
I think I was there for that.
Really?
I do think that's the one. That's when I saw her, and I remember especially the boathouse story. And yeah,
right.
Go ahead, Betty.
Well, that was just what I was going to mention. Had anybody mentioned that she had to spend the night in the storm on a boathouse, pregnant, and wow, yeah, that was.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Well, she said the biggest hurricane that ever hit South Carolina hit that night.
Yeah.
And there was a ship out in the ocean on fire.
Oh
my.
Yeah, there was a big, I forget what kind of, a big ship that had caught fire. So she said they had entertainment all night long.
Oh my God.
Do you know what month that was?
I don't. But, again, I'm going to that video, Duke, as soon as maybe not right when we get done here, but very shortly, I'm going to go look at that video of her because She is riveting. She's just so amazing. I'm gonna watch.
Amazing. How do we see it? Where do we access
On the Meher Baba Center offerings.
Oh, it's a library that we can access?
Well, every week the center sends out their newsletter.
Right.
So you can just go onto the center's website. What is it? mehercenter.org.
Yeah.
And you'll see all the offerings.
All of them. Oh, awesome. Oh.
But this one's rather recent, so it'll be easy to find.
Great.
Yeah. All right. Well.
Oh, and one thing, my good friends the Euchers learned about Margaret. Was a student of Virginia's. She was their Baba contact, and they thought the world of the Rudds. I'm going to send a link to Don just as soon as Angela posts it. I know he'll love to see this.
Yeah, Betty, I was just asking recently about the Euchers because it's been so long since, I guess, the Northeast Gathering, I don't know, 6-7 years ago was the last time Melinda and I saw them. And I'm just wondering how they were doing. Can you tell us anything about them?
Can I interrupt for a minute, for a second? I have to get to work, so I'll just say thank you, everybody, and bye.
Thank you. That's my husband, Dave. He's following in Harold Rudd's footsteps.
Yeah, he is.
He is.
Does anyone know the precise date that the Virginia Rudd offering was sent out? If I get those, Betty, I don't mind sending it to you if I know what date it was, how long ago.
I'll look it up later and send you an email.
Okay, and then I'll pass that on to Betty.
Duke, about the Euchers, you may have heard that Margaret had she suffered an attack from a mentally ill friend of theirs. You must have known this.
No, I don't know about this.
They had a long time family friend whose daughter was staying with them and nearly killed Margaret in a knife attack. Yeah, she did survive after being hospitalized, but of course that was a big trauma.
Wow, that really accented that trauma.
That was my dog and cat.
Oh man, I got scared after hearing that.
Eddie, you let the cat out of the bag.
They're both living at home, and they're kids. They have wonderful boys and Laura who are helping out with Don. So they're available. I call Don now and then. He appreciates calls. He's so that was the big news with the Euchers. I believe she has Alzheimer's. They're both not suffering a bit from how do you say it, memory issues. But Don is quite present and welcomes phone calls.
Oh, great! Thanks for that, Betty.
Yeah,
thank you.
I'm glad she's home, Betty.
Oh yeah, she's been home for quite a while. That's old. That's old news. It happened a couple of years ago, I think. Yeah.
Very traumatic.
Yeah.
Well, it sure has been nice being with everybody.
It's been wonderful. What a fun. It sort of gives us permission to be a little crazy. That's how I feel.
I think we already have that.
Good.
Oh dear.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Good to see you. So good to see you.
Come back and see us. Hey, Duke.
Especially I haven't seen you for a long time.
Yeah, we could use a little music too. Maybe you'd be interested in doing a little bit of music for us one day.
I wouldn't mind doing that. Sure. Yeah. Let's discuss that online, and we maybe can put something together.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
All right.
Well,
thanks again, everybody.
Thank you. Happy Mother's Day.
Jai Baba. Good night.
Thank you for coming, Denise.
Thank you so much.
So glad.
Meher Baba.
Meher Baba.
Meher Baba. Meher Baba
Ki Jai.
Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you. Thanks, Ruthie. Jai Bob, everybody. Bye.
Bye.